James Whittaker, thank you so much for being on the Bean Talking podcast. Yeah, my sum up of you is you've written a follow up or a companion to the best self help book ever written. You're an Australian, so everyone's going to love you anyway. And you're a keynote speaker, and you also love sort of finance. You had a 10-year career in that, but that's my sum up of yourself. But for people who don't know you, and I guess my younger demographic of here and whatnot, give us an explanation of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. So I grew up in Brisbane and I now live in Los Angeles. I would say sunny California, but it's been very, very wet here the last week. But yeah, I grew up in Brisbane, and I always felt like I had that entrepreneurial vibe, but just didn't really have a proper outlet for me to get any results for that. So yeah, I went to uni and then, drifted a bit, really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and then spent 10 years in financial planning after that. And I enjoyed it, but and the main thing about that time is it got me thinking about how important it is to be engaged with your finances, because that really is such an important part of your life or your parents' life or your grandparents' life. And then for people who have kids, their lives as well. It can be very expensive to live on this world, and the more money that we have, it just enables us to not only provide freedom for us and look after the people who we care about, it enables us to contribute to the causes that we care about as well. Things like innovation and medical research for diseases as well. So I think in Australia in particular, we have this big stigma around money being bad. And the love of money is very, very bad, but pursuing it for the greater good, I actually think is very, very honorable. And when I had a whole heap of different things happening in my life around that time. And then I really wanted just to get away from Brisbane and just go to the other side of the world. So I actually went over to Boston. So that's about as far away as you could get from Brisbane.
Yeah,
Boston.
my sister lives there now, so it is a good place.
Oh, cool. Beautiful place. It's probably very snowy right now. It's a great place. And it was when I was about 28 when I moved over there. And it was when I was seeing people over there who were around the same age or younger, who were actually doing all the things that I wanted to do. They had some really cool businesses and bringing products to market, and they were talking about these ideas. And it got me thinking, well, what's the difference between me and them? And the difference is they were taking a different kind of action. I thought I was taking action, but I wasn't. They were taking the right kind of action to follow that entrepreneurial dream.
Yeah.
And that was such a big light bulb moment for me then, because sometimes it's only when you completely remove yourself from a bubble that you actually realize how big of a bubble that you were in. And Australia, we do have that thing a bit with tall poppy syndrome. I think it's getting a lot better now, but it's like sometimes just even you don't have to go to Boston or to the other side of the world to really find yourself. But I think if you are staying in the one place, you need to really seek out people who inspire you and who are similar values, so you can actually have a little mastermind group of your own and really just get those feelings from where you are. But then to wrap up my long-winded story here.
I like it. It's some stuff to ask.
Yeah, I then moved to LA after that, and LA is great because it's very, we were talking about tall poppy syndrome. LA is the complete opposite. Everyone comes here to follow their dreams. Some make it, some fail, and I just absolutely love being in an environment where I'm just inspired by seeing people go after what they want to do, and that's exactly what I want to do. And it's just a good place to be for me to do all that. So, yeah, most recently I've been the co-executive producer of a brand new film, Think and Grow Rich: The Legacy, which is the film version of Think and Grow Rich. It's never been made a film before, and the original Think and Grow Rich book came out in 1937, and also released a book version also called Think and Grow Rich: The Legacy. So, that's about where I'm at today.
And the book's amazing. I really also want to go into that because it's like many people had an impact on my life, but also everyone else's. But you touched on something there that I find very interesting, being a drift sort of mentality. I'm finding as a 24-year-old that a lot of my friends are either coming to me or they're messaging, or I'm in group conversations where they're just in that same sort of thing. So it looks like you had a pretty good formula there where you got out of the mold and you did all that. But for someone who I guess is 20, 24, just finished uni, and now they're like, oh, geez, I don't know what to do. Do you have any practical steps that you would ask someone to?
So much for that. That was me. I finished uni and I had no idea what I wanted to do, because growing up, you go to high school and it's all about getting, like the best grades you can in high school. And then it's all about getting into the best course you can at uni. And then it's all about getting the best results you can in uni. And it's like your life is supposed to be revealed to you, and then you'll be happy and wealthy for the rest of your life. And it's just not true. Like, the thing that you need to focus on, and I'm a huge believer in education, but by far the most important thing is what you do with what you learn. So knowledge by itself is meaningless. Like, what plans are you creating? Like, what does success look like to you? And I asked that, and 95% of people don't have an answer. It's just, I find that absolutely mind-boggling. Like, tell me what you really, really want. And so many people don't even know. And once you're very, very clear on where you want to go and who you are, like, what are your values? What standards do you set for yourself? What life do you want? And what are you willing to not accept? And what sacrifices are you going to make to go after what you want? And I think that's the most important thing. I did a speech in Brisbane a few months ago when I was back there, and there were some OP1 students and some very good, very strong high school academically performers in the crowd. And there was just one person in there who just didn't really seem interested in being there, and she just seemed a bit disengaged. And I thought to myself, yeah, sometimes like that, sometimes being an OP1, being told that you're so smart can actually be the worst thing for you, because you just, you're going to have a huge realization that no one cares how many degrees you have. No one cares about your OP1. They care about how much value you can create in the marketplace. They care about the value you can create for your staff. And that's such a big difference, such a big realization. So if I was 24 all over again, I would first of all make the decision to engage with life. And that was something where, for me, I had a lot of big issues with anxiety when I was young, and I didn't really understand it. And being aware of exactly what it was and understanding the physiological symptoms, and then getting myself healthy mentally, physically, literally the food that I ate, not going out and partying all the time, starting to hang around people who are good for your soul rather than people who you just happen to have gone to school with.
Yeah, exactly. You share that. You don't share that.
For sure.
Share things that make you grow.
Definitely. And like, hang around those who have a common future, not a common past. It's so important. And just really getting clear on who you are and where you want to go. And that's actually why I created the success plan template that I have available, that anyone can just, people can email me, or it's in the link of my Instagram as well. Just go and download this success plan template. Really think about how you're spending your days. Where is your energy going? And just make the decision to engage with life. And the earlier you start being responsible and accountable for your actions, the earlier you can make those changes. And then the longer, like, the better off you are, because you can enjoy that success for longer as well. The people that want to put it aside and want to sit there and watch TV for 2 hours a day and eat junk food, whatever you don't deal with will eventually deal with you. So deal with it early.
And the way that you're also feeding that stuff into your body, thank you for opening up about the anxiety. Myself, I've been quite public and open in sort of my mental health as well, dealing with depression and what comes with that. But I think it's compounded today, where you see the highlights of people on social media. You see, that kind of thing, and that can compound it. But also, it's again something I'm noticing in friends a lot is they'll come to me and they've got anxiety, they've got this, and I think, would you say that that's on the rise as well because of those higher expectations? Or
Absolutely. And think about the reason for a lot of these mental health issues. And I'm not a doctor, I don't pretend to be one.
But
it's so much around, it sounds like you do too. Like, I've got a lot of experience in what I went through as well, and overcoming these things, to not really being able to feel like I could even go to work or attend class, to being able to speak in front of 2,000 people regularly.
Wow.
So much of this mental health issue is the contradiction between where we are now and where we think we need to be in the future, or what someone else has. And the very first tenet of Buddhism, and I'm not a Buddhist, but the very first tenet of Buddhism is life is suffering. And the source of all that suffering is that you crave something else. And you think, oh, well, then I just need to not really, I just have to not want anything and be happy in my own skin. But then on the other side, on the flip side, Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich, says that the starting point of all achievement is desire. So I think people really need to figure out that balance between going after what they want, but also enjoying the journey, embracing the struggle. And the best way that I've found to do that is by coming from a place of gratitude, because when you're being grateful for everything that you've got in your life right now, and in my book, there are people like Janine Sheppard who...
This is something I was going to touch on.
It's like if she's been
going into the question I was going to ask,
like if she's been hit by a truck, airlifted to hospital, 10 days in a coma, 6 months in the spinal ward, and told that she can never walk again for the rest of her life, and she can still find a way to be grateful, then anyone listening or watching, they can find a way to be grateful as well. So you just need to... I'm sorry?
All perspectives sometimes, having that perspective,
Absolutely. And exactly what you said around, you're looking at a snapshot from everyone here. No one's having these perfect days. And when people post things on Instagram, it's just a part of branding and packaging your story. And then you want to look at packaging their story. Like, branding is very, very important. And the most successful entrepreneurs, people like Gary Vaynerchuk and Sarah Blakely and Lewis Howes and Tony Robbins and Oprah Winfrey, they're experts at packaging their vulnerabilities and their purpose. That's what adds up to their story. And everything they do is as a result of that. You can't be 2 days into your journey comparing yourself to someone else who's 10 years down the road. So there's so much to it. But I would focus much more on the actions that you're taking rather than the results that you're getting or the results that someone else is putting out there. Because at the end of the day, someone asked me the other day about when did I feel like my life was a success, and I just don't feel that way. I'm always focused on the climb and figuring out how to help more and more people. So the view from the top is fleeting. Anyone who's had any big accomplishment, whether it's sport or whatever it might be, it's a momentary feeling of joy and then a feeling of emptiness because you feel like your purpose or your meaning is gone. So you always need to have a dream.
Wow, that for me, looking up, I guess that's a good thing to remember for sure. That's amazing. Thank you. Something I wanted to touch on. So in your book, a common theme of all of the case studies. So essentially, I would summarize. You've brought Think and Grow Rich into the modern day, and then given case studies around the principles that are in the book. The people that you had on, first of all, amazing. So Janine Sheppard, Grant Cardone, to name a few. But a theme that I saw through every single one is that they all went through levels of adversity and levels of things where they'd be crumpled down. And it's almost in line with what we were just talking about. But what do you think it is about that adversity and being at rock bottom? So someone like Grant Cardone, who was had a drug addiction, no passion. Then 25, he got a hold of a couple of books and resources, and now he's the guy he is today. And then Janine Sheppard with her injuries. But yeah, I'll come back to that. What do you think it is about adversity that kind of breeds success?
Really, really good question. It's one of the best questions I've ever been asked, actually.
Thank you.
A lot of that can come from the disgust, the sheer disgust of I'm not going to live like this anymore. A change has to happen. And it's hard for you to say when something small has happened to you or you've had a little bit of adversity to say, I'm going to draw a line in the sand and go after what I want. And it's not impossible to do that, but in life there is often a direct proportion between someone's mastery of failure and then the success that they have been able to enjoy later. So another one in the book is someone like Jim Stovall, who at the age of 17 was told he'd go totally and permanently blind. Oh, wow. And for him to be able to figure out, for everything that happens to us, there is so much that you can learn from that. You just need to figure out a practical way that you can convert that into some sort of value. So people who think that, like this has happened to me and why did this have to happen to me, when what you really need to figure out is, well, what do you want and what plan are you going to create to go after it? So much of that comes from resourcefulness as well. And there are, depending on we're all different, but depending on the adversity that we go through, perhaps it gives you empathy for others in that situation, which enables you to then go and, for someone like Janine Sheppard, to teach about resilience. For someone like Jim Stovall, he realized that blind and visually impaired people are not able to enjoy television programming like everyone else. So he created that solution. John Lee Dumas from EOF, the Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast, he was a military vet. He was over in Iraq after September 11, and he came back and he didn't realize, like he thought he wanted to be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor. He tried, or property. He tried all these different career paths and nothing seemed to stick. And then one day he was listening to podcasts exactly like this one, and he realized that there weren't any podcasts for entrepreneurs every single day. So he created it. So he filled that gap and that void in his life by creating what he wanted. And for someone like Grant Cardone, he realized that when people said he has to give up his dreams of having a private jet and doing all those things, people said that he could never do it. He would have to give up on that forever. And he used that opinion that someone else had to spur him on to achieve all those things. So how we use that adversity and how we feel about it is different to each person. But for anyone going through some adversity, you just need, and that's it. Really what I wanted to do in this book was put in that collection of short stories so you could read about all these different adversities, so you could find a situation that might be similar to yours, or you could really have see a bit of a blueprint into how these people were able to use that adversity to greater success. But it's such a big question, and one of the worst things, if not the worst thing that you can do in life, is accept temporary failure as permanent defeat. The moment you do that, you're done. So really find the gift in every challenge and never accept temporary failure as permanent defeat. You get people, the thing that kills me is when you see young people, 18, 19 years old, and they got relationship problems, and it feels like such a huge part. Well, it feels like such a big part of their life. But for anyone who's 30 or older, they have that perspective that it really is insignificant in the form of everything else. But having that faith that something much better actually awaits you down the track, or this sometimes that fate can actually force a move for you, that this adversity can actually be, and often is, the best thing that ever happened to you. It's just very hard to see in the moment. So,
Well, definitely. So I'll touch on my sort of story with adversity. With depression, diagnosed with bipolar 2, with misconception. Sometimes so people think bipolar is just up and down, but 2 is just defined by long periods of depression and then some mania. But it's all in the way that I frame it. So quite recently I went through a depressive episode, but I learned 3 incredibly invaluable things. One was perspective, which we've been talking a bit about. The second was physical exercise and health. And then the third was having a clear purpose, but not just a purpose in terms of this big overarching thing, but what's your purpose for every single day? And I think I see you on your Instagram stories actually writing 3 things a day that that will make today great. And then there's a quote. I've seen you do that quite recently, and heard you talk about it in the past. But if I hadn't learned those 3 things, it took me 8 months to learn it through this period of depression. But that adversity in itself gave me such a valuable insight that I don't think a lot of people would have. So something
for sure
has turned into something good.
Definitely. And I think anyone who goes and sees a mental health professional and the person then turns around and prescribes a pill that they need to take for the rest of their life, like, wouldn't you rather be focusing on food like diet and exercise and eating clean? And that book that I actually use is something called the 5-minute journal, and I do it almost every day. Yeah, you write down 3 things you're grateful for and 3 things that would make today a win. Then at the end of the day, you write down 3 amazing things that happened today and what you could have done to improve the day. Yeah. And it's just such an important part of it as well. And my sort of whole tagline around things with life is all about winning the day. And it's I'm happy with what you brought up before as well. And it's because each day, if we do not make the decision to win, you have automatically made the decision to lose, because it's human nature. We resort to that which is easy. We want to sit on the couch and watch TV. We want to go out and hang out with friends and do whatever it is. It's people find it difficult to talk to their friends about their dreams and their purpose and things like that, which I love, and I'm sure you love as well.
Yeah.
And that success plan template, it's literally a wish list for everything that you want out of your life. That should be the most exciting and exhilarating thing that you do. But the people who aren't even excited to do that, well, then you just need to, you just need to have that perspective. But I think just being aware that if you don't state that intent every single day, if you're not clear what would make today a win, then you are automatically going to lose that day and extrapolate it over time. That is where you will have to deal with neglect. And if you've neglected your physical fitness, your mental well-being, your finances, whatever that might be, extrapolated over 1 month, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, you'll potentially be in big trouble. So focus on winning the day and think about what success looks like in all areas of your life.
Also individualize to yourself as well, because sometimes when you use the word success, you think the hashtag success and the fake culture with the Lambos and the cars and all that. but success to John down the road might be that he's a happy family, has his time off on the weekends that he can go and play cricket or AFL or whatever it is in America that people play on the weekend. So yeah, that's the other thing that's quite cool. I want to chat some more about this book, because it's I was reading it in the car and sometimes genuine chills with the stories of it, and also the awesome thing for me was like, wow, that's the guests you have on really related to me, but then it's also someone that I've looked up to too. So someone like, I've mentioned him a couple of times, Grant Cardone, in terms of sales, and I guess on the sales cycle here was how did you find actually reaching out to those people? Was it you had to were they quite open to you? Did you sort of say, Napolen Hill Foundation, they were all happy to? Because it seemed like they all had a real personal experience with the book too. So I think that would have helped too. But how did you find that whole research and interview process going through the good old Napolen Hill sort of interviewing format?
It can be difficult to reach out to. It can be almost impossible these days to reach out to people who have got like 500,000 or more followers on social media. Like I've got something like 11,000 on Instagram right now, and I struggle to.
I was impressed with that though, but
it's hard because at the same time, literally anyone who messages me or comments and has an actual heartfelt question, I will answer it to the best of my ability. And my wife needs to grab the phone off me sometimes as well, but I just want to help people, and it's an easy way to.
It's the same to me.
It's funny, but so all of these people who were in the film and the book, they Think and Grow Rich had completely transformed their life, and they knew there was this big budget film being made about the book that they were featured in. So it was a much warmer introduction than they otherwise would have done. So then having those conversations, there's someone like Errol Abramson, who's a billionaire from Canada. My first conversation with him was 4 hours on Skype, and we still talk very, very regularly. So that's a very, very long conversation. And then there are other people who are like someone like Grant Cardone, who you mentioned. That was just a Skype call, which was great because he's just got this energy. Yeah, he's exactly the same across the board when you have these private conversations, like that public persona. It really is him. And it was interesting talking to him because, he's got the whole 10X movement and all about thinking 10 times bigger.
Yep.
And when we had the call, he said he'd just been blowing up at his IT team, and because they were thinking too small. So he said, 10X is bullshit. You need to think 100 times bigger than where you're at. And amazing. All these people who are in the book and the film, because I interviewed them now, I guess someone maybe 2 years ago, and they're like watching their careers it's really quite extraordinary because they're all absolutely killing it across the board, all of them. And I am putting into play every single thing that I've learned. So people can watch the things that I'm doing. It's when I interviewed these people, it was almost like having a one-on-one session where, I would always throw in one or two questions for things that I wanted to know about as well. And I ended up with 500,000 words of research notes from this whole process. So it was just, it was a huge, like people like Rob Dyrdek, like just sitting there in his office with him for 2 hours in his penthouse office in Beverly Hills. It really is a surreal experience, but I'm just so grateful for the opportunity. And then I want to pay it forward now to, I understand the formula that Napolen Hill had. I know the exact formula that all of these people have used. I'm using it right now myself, and I want to share it with the world through speaking and doing podcasts and things like this. And that's it. Just want to get it out to the world.
Because that's the thing. I mean, the more you show up, the more you help, the more you reach out. Like, yeah, you talking to you right now is a real highlight for me of the year so far. I know it's only short, but it's definitely. But yeah, you're paying it forward, and I've found that because I reach out to people through Instagram, a number of different accounts, and it's very interesting the authenticity that you had coming across. You gave me the time, and yeah, it speaks volumes, and that was amazing. So
I attended this event in December 2017, and I knew that the book was going to be coming out in a few months' time. And there were a few people there who had their own podcasts or were looking at starting their own podcasts. And I had never been on a single podcast, and I'd been on a few radio things many, many years ago when my first book had come out as well, which was before the podcast world had taken off.
Yes.
And I set a goal, and I forget what it was. I think, no, that's what it was. I said that I was going to be on, I wanted to be on 100 podcasts within the next year. And I hadn't been on a single one, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then I had one person reach out, and I said yes, and then focused very, very hard on preparing. I spent hours to make sure I was ready to go. And once that one was done, I then asked if she had 2 or 3 other people who had podcasts that she could, introduce me to if I had brought value to her audience. And that led to 1 or 2 people. And I kept asking that same question. And that is how within 1 year, I was able to get on more than 200 podcast and radio shows, and it made such a big, big difference. And that's why now I will never, and I told myself that I would never turn down a podcast if someone wanted me to be on it, regardless of how small it was. And, I've had the opportunity now to do some big ones as well, very big ones, people like Kerwin Ray and EO Fire and things as well. And people may not get on because right now, if someone emails me, it's going to be, I think, 3 or 4 months before I've got any space to be on one. Because, but it's like that's the goal. You need to really focus on resourcefulness and what you can do to achieve your goal. So first off, setting that goal, and then being resourceful and thinking outside the box as to how you can make that happen. And because I've done so many of them now, which led to a lot of other opportunities that you don't need any preparation, and you get into you get into the flow. But having that, I feel like there's not as much of an emphasis as there should be on resourcefulness. If you mightn't get the best exam results, but if you are someone who can turn lemons into lemonade, like that's the way that you really can succeed in life.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying before. People won't pay you for what you know; they'll pay you for what you can do.
Exactly right.
And I found myself in a trap of just chasing knowledge, right? So I'd listen to audiobooks, I'd listen to Think and Grow Rich, I'd listen to Richest Man in Babylon, and I'd seek knowledge, but then I wasn't actually doing anything with it, which is kind of useless. But it wasn't until that flick of okay, let's do something, let's make lemonades, so to speak. Where it really kind of caught on, that I started. And even this podcast, I was sitting down with a mate of mine, and I'd walk away from conversations with people going, geez, I wish I recorded that. And it was just that first step of, okay, well, let's just do it. That really helps. So something I also want to talk about is you took that entrepreneurial leap as well. I did listen to Kerwin's podcast with you last night on the plane ride home, and that was a really interesting story for me, where it was the typical entrepreneur that doesn't like being told when you can sleep, what to wear. It was that. But I think a lot of people identify with that, where it's like, well, if I'm not employable, I'm going to start something myself, and then it's exciting. How was that journey for you?
It was great. It was really, really interesting, and there was so many. It was such a very, very quick evolution, because I've got a whole heap of different degrees and things now as well, including a master's degree in business administration, but it's real world business experience that is 100 times more valuable than what you learn in the classroom.
Yeah.
And doing things like these conversations that you're having with interesting people is just such a great way for you to learn all about that stuff as well. And it was really interesting in so many different ways, like, because you learn about the people who really support you. There are people who you think support you, but it's only when you have a real business or separate other businesses that you actually see who are the ones who truly support you. You go through a whole heap of different things. Like I was a co-founder of one of the world's biggest CrossFit gyms in Brisbane, CrossFit Touring, and just a few months after we opened, we had a flood swept right through the place, and then we went, crazy. And then and we needed like members. We had to close the gym for 3 days, and the members were a little bit understanding, but at the same time, they're like, well, hang on, we're sort of paying for a service that we can't use, which is understandably so. And then a week later, an even bigger flood. We thought that was a once in a lifetime flood, but then a week later, an even bigger one came through, and it was.
This is Brisbane, right?
In Brisbane, the big summer storms. But it's the entrepreneurial journey is not for everyone. It is certainly not for the faint-hearted, and you will end up working so much more than you would in any type of corporate job anywhere else. And people who do have a corporate job don't understand how lucky they have it at 5 o'clock or whenever they knock off each day. And on Friday afternoon, they get their nights to themselves. They get their weekends to themselves. They can just turn their phone off and not worry about it. Whereas when it's your business, everything is on you. And that whole process is, it just made me realize that I actually just wanted to do things by myself. I wanted that freedom and that autonomy to be completely, my life was leading me into America, and I wanted to do speaking and films and books and things over here. And I'm in a place right now where I've got a lot of balance, but still have to work very, very hard, because if I don't work, if I'm not flying to Texas and spending nights in hotels and doing these things, well, then that's my lifestyle and things as well. So it's not for everyone. The entrepreneurial journey is very, very tough, but it is the best way to learn. And I think having your own business as early as you can, and just being smart about it, like find people who already have the success that you want and add value to their lives, and you'll find that it's returned to you in spades. Maybe not directly, but the universe will return it to you in spades.
Yeah, well, that circles me around to the mastermind a little bit, and probably good sort of good topic to sort of delve into. The mastermind is or a personal board, or having a group of people with whom you can confide to. And I've heard you say it's one of the things that's really impacted your life. But for someone who doesn't know what a mastermind group is, let's delve into it and explain the benefits.
There are many. So the power of the mastermind is a ninth principle of Napolen Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. And it says that you don't need to have all the answers yourself. You can actually align your interests with someone else. And that is often, the best way to do that is often to find someone who's actually different to you rather than an exact clone. So they can tell you things that you otherwise wouldn't have known. And someone like Barbra, who people might know as the face of or one of the panelists on the American Shark Tank, she said that she hired her exact opposite as her business partner, who has strengths where things that she didn't even know about and didn't even want to know about. And to give you some practical examples of mastermind groups that I've had, the very first one that I ever had was with 3 other friends when I first started in the financial planning world. And we would meet up and we would talk about, one of us would, or 2 of us would, I forget, it was a while ago now, we would each research different companies, and then we would actually present like we were doing a speech on those companies. So we would learn about those different companies. We would talk about our goals individually. We would talk about our goals as a group. And that is so important, because you've got people around you in your life, everyone does, who they just want to help you. But if you're not clear on who you are and where you're going, then it's very, very difficult. In fact, it's impossible for them to help you. But if you are focused on unconditionally adding value to others, and then you're very, very clear on where you want to go and how people can help you, then they will. And as part of when I moved to LA, there were I think 4 or 5 other people, and we still talk very regularly. A couple of the boys moved back to Australia, one to Melbourne and one to Sydney. We had a whole heap of different backgrounds. We had like property and all different types of finance and entertainment and tech. We had everything covered, and we would fill out that.
Must have been a cool feeling to sort of have that Rolodex of, I've got this problem, I can call Francis. I've got this problem, I can call Jenny. You know, that would have been a really cool sort of feeling.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. 100%. And that's the thing. Like I don't really make that many moves without talking to people who I feel are the authorities in that field to help me make a decision in a smarter way. And so when I had the book and the film stuff, I turned to my friend who's in entertainment and all of these different things that have happened. And once you don't need to have 1,000 contacts. You need to have a small number of contacts, but be very, very, very good. But having a lot of acquaintances and putting yourself out there is very good. Like there was one thing where there was a guy that I ended up just meeting. We would go and train at the same time, and we would have these surface level conversations. And it was only when I actually needed a lawyer, an entertainment specific lawyer, to help me with my things over here, just to help structure things up, that I realized this person that I had been talking to the whole time was actually the lawyer for, Justin Timberlake and the Black Eyed Peas. And we're such good friends that he was able to help me. So now I've got this guru lawyer in my corner who can help me out with everything. But if you think, and one of the biggest challenges for younger people is you think that your idea is $1 billion idea and you don't want to tell anyone. When no one cares about your idea, it really matters what you do with your idea. So get out of your little bubble, find people who you really trust or have enjoyed the success that you want, and then share your idea and incentivize them to help you make it better. That's what the mastermind is, and help out with their ideas as well. And leave your ego at the door. I've written if you type in my name and mastermind, I've written a whole criteria around and formula around those different things. Because if you've got 2 different people and one has got an advisory group of people from a diverse leadership team who can help them get everything they got to do done, and someone else who's trapped in their own head because they're worried that someone else might steal their idea, then you know who's going to win any day of the week.
100%. And the ego thing there is interesting to me. I was actually on the end of a phone call the other day with a good friend of mine, 27. He's doing some cool things, and he was like, I'm going to give you some constructive feedback in terms of content. And he's framed it in a way where he said, okay, what I want you to do, first of all, is get your ego. I'm not saying this to harm you or hurt you. I'm just giving constructive feedback. But get your ego, put it into a little box, and let's have a conversation. And then on the back end of that conversation, it lasted probably about 25 minutes. I was also out having dinner with my girlfriend, but the content was really cool. So I was just like, I'm listening, so you could, Lisa, just calm down. And he gave me some amazing feedback on what I was doing, but because he framed it in a way of, okay, I'm going to say some harsh stuff to you, but it's coming from a place of love. Like, let's tame the ego a bit. And I think if you can bring that into your mastermind groups as well, it'll just accelerate it.
So true, because you're revealing that vulnerability. And another really important point about success is that the most important opinion that matters is how you feel about yourself. So you're the one who ultimately needs to make and live with the decisions that you actually make. But leaving your ego at the door and being open to criticism, it all comes from a place of vulnerability and self-belief and confidence in yourself. So seek out those opinions, but also don't take constructive criticism from people who haven't constructed anything. Like, you really need to make sure you've got the right group of people. It's such a big thing. Otherwise, one person can be like a bit of a cancer in the group. Find out people who have got diverse backgrounds, but are actually aligned as far as things like values and ambition and wanting to unconditionally give value and meet up regularly. They're all the ingredients. But the ones who sit there and get offended when someone is trying to say something and is in a position of authority to be able to do that. Like, if anyone in my book picks up the phone and calls you and says, hey, they've got something that might be able to help, well, then I would listen, and I'm sure you and everyone else should listen too. But if it's someone who doesn't understand how big you're thinking, doesn't understand your dreams, and they haven't done anything themselves, and you don't really need to put as much weight on their opinion.
Yeah. I think That's awesome, and I think that's an awesome spot to maybe leave it, because I love where that sort of goes, and that's really good to tail end it off. But my last question, I got probably two more questions for you. Because the audience of this podcast at the moment at least is sort of very kind of 20 to 32, I'm assuming, unless my dad's friends are on Facebook. But I heard on Kerwin's podcast last night that you're also starting a new project where you're wanting to help youth people more. So yeah, a message to them for something that they can do right now if they're stuck in that abyss that you were talking about, or looking at success and going, yeah, okay, I want to do that. Yeah, just let's give a message to those people. 24, what am I doing, sort of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you need to get off the couch. You need to go out there and enjoy everything that life has to offer. There are so many different businesses and things, and if you don't really have an idea around what excites you, that says to me that you actually need to get yourself out there more. So go and find the smartest, most successful people who you know, and then do whatever you've got to do to have them take you under their wing, or go and research companies, go and volunteer to work in different industries. Find people who excite you, or companies that excite you. And then with that in mind, backtrack it right back to the actions that you can do to get a foot in the door for those opportunities. And don't worry about a short-term paycheck. You need to be working in an environment that inspires you and enables you to learn along the way. Because if you're in an environment where you're actually getting paid, if you're really learning along the way, as any job that you take, you should be learning. They're actually paying you to learn. That's a bit of a different paradigm to look at, rather than people thinking that they're slaving away for a crappy wage. So I'd say get out there and find an area or a company or an industry or a person who excites you, something that you're passionate about, and just looking at ways that you really can start to understand their business and how they create value, and then think about ways that you can start to create value for other people as well. And a lot of people who feel like other people have the advantages that they don't, sometimes actually being broke and poor and coming from a bad home can actually be the best starting point. And you really have this extra layer of motivation and incentive that other people don't. Sometimes in many cases, being born with a silver spoon in your mouth can be the worst thing for you. So I think even also, I don't want to sound like I'm flogging the new book, but going and reading the book and just listening and reading these stories of people who have been able to do these awesome things, just to get you inspired about your own success, and make that decision to engage with life as early as you can. Don't let life happen to you. Make life happen for you.
Well, the cool thing I found when I was reading the book actually is I kept thinking to myself, damn, I want to go back and read Think and Grow Rich again. I want to go back and read Think and Grow Rich again, and then read this again, because it just feeds back into that. You go, oh, if Grant Cardone picked up a copy of this book and read it, or if Janine Sheppard was using these principles, I want to go back and read the book again. So I think you've done it justice with that companion. It's because it makes people go, oh, if this was their first interaction with Think and Grow Rich, they want to go back and read it again. So I think that's plug away for sure. I want as many people listening to this podcast to go and read both your book and Think and Grow Rich. I think it's necessary reading and should be in there. But look, James, so if anybody's heard anything, they want to go download that success book. I believe you also got a chapter of the book on your website as well. Where can people go and find you?
Yeah, you can go to Instagram at James Whitt with 2 T's, JamesWhitt, on Facebook as well, and my website's jameswhitt.com. So reach out if I can be of service. I mightn't get back to you immediately, but I will get back to you as quick as I can, and just get out there and have some fun and be happy.
Fantastic. All right, James, well, thank you so much. I've been Tim, this has been James, and we've been talking. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me, Tim.